Hey, welcome back to Relax Radio with none other than me, Nick, keeping you guys company all the way until 5 p.m., giving you nothing but the best in entertainment. And we're gonna be talking about a lot of these conversations that is happening right now. And in case you guys are wondering, this is Real Talk, and you're tuning in to Relax Radio, Relaks. So there's a lot of these issues going on right now, and especially it's coming out with David Cameron. Yeah, David Cameron is having issues about all of this. And one of the things is he's been having a lobbying row, and they are having concerns, especially with the government right now. And they're trying to talk about it, and they're trying to address it. And in case you guys are wondering, what is lobbying? Well, I'm going to be giving you a brief guide on what lobbying is. So essentially, the former Prime Minister David Cameron, he's been in the news, okay, for his lobbying of the government. But what does that really mean? Well, lobbying is essentially when, individuals, businesses, trade unions, and politicians, groups, and charities, try to get the government to change certain rules and or certain policies. So this is just something that they call political persuasion. That's the better term for it. They're trying to get government officials to change a certain policy to suit their needs. So how does this happen? Well, it's not really easy as it sounds. So lobbyists can make their cases to ministers, MPs, or officials, and they can write email, they can they can write, they can text, they can phone, they can call, they can video call, or turn up in person in Parliament to do that. Although the latter hasn't happened over the past year due to the COVID-19 restrictions. So how does this lobbying work? Well, lobbying doesn't always work all the time. It works sometimes it's like a 50-50 game. It works, it's the effort. They put in the effort and they say, okay, we're going to put this here. This is the issue we have right now. We're going to talk about this. This is how we're going to do it. And then it doesn't always work, though. It's not always. So changing politicians' minds can take a very, very long time. That's why organizations and firms often hire these professional lobbyists to make arguments on their behalf. Because, in the end of the day, you need someone who can articulate it better than you do. So, that's just something that they need. And some of these are former politicians themselves, and they know the game. And that is who's who and where to find them. But it's important also to re-emphasize that individual citizens unpaid can also lobby politicians about issues that are important to them. Anyone can be a lobbyist. In other words, even I can be a lobbyist. You can be a lobbyist. Anybody can be a lobbyist, essentially. So is the system fair, though? That is the real question that we're supposed to be asking ourselves. Is this system really ever fair? Well, supporters say that these professional lobbyists is a vital and a valid part of the democracy. I mean, they're just very important because they're the people who bring up the points that some people cannot bring up, and this is just some of the people. This is just some of the opportunity that normal people can have, and they can lobby politicians or certain policies that don't support them. And it is part of the democracy. It essentially stimulates debate and keeps politicians in touch with the latest developments in areas like science, like business. But the critics are arguing, and they say that the current system is open to corruption, and that the wealthy interests, the ones who can't afford the professionals to make their case, have an unfair advantage. Because end of the day, the better. It's when it comes to lawyers, it's pretty much the same thing. If you have, the more money you have, the more chances you can, of hiring a better lawyer to defend your case. So that's just something that, they are addressing. And this is just one of the reasons why this is not a completely fair system. So is anything really changing? Well, there has been these issues with James Cameron following the disclosures about Mr. Cameron's work, David Cameron's work, essentially, that the government has set up a review of lobbying led by a lawyer, which is due to report back by the end of June. So Prime Minister Boris Johnson is promising that he will be giving free rein to ask questions. So they're allowed to be asking these questions. So Labour is instead calling up for a full inquiry by MPs from different parties. So this is something that's something that's new, and that they're not really doing it right now. It's a new step that they are trying to approach with. So with these sessions to be held in public, but that is not going to happen after it was voted down by the Conservative MPs. So why is it called the lobbying? I mean, that is another thing why people, that could be one of the questions, what pop in your head. Why is it called lobbying? It could be called a debate. It could be called an argument. Why lobbying? Well, It started a long time ago when members of the public turned up in parliaments and in the lobby areas to meet the MPs to let them know essentially what was needed to change. And that is just where the term was derived. So lobbying is essentially an age-old term for people to talk, and it's for the common man. This is what they're trying to see. Back in the day, this word was, where people didn't have the opportunity to meet politicians sometimes face to face. So what they do is they go to the lobby areas and they wait until the MPs show up. So it's harder to get in that part of the building, than it used to be because of those tighter security. So meetings are just as likely to take place anywhere, such as over dinner, in MPs, in their hotels, or in via through the phone. So this is just one of the ways people can lobby when it comes to lobbying and all of that. So, what is the issue right now is that David Cameron was lobbying. He had a lobbying role with the government. So this former Prime Minister David Cameron's attempt to lobby ministers on behalf of a finance firm to be investigated by an influential committee of MPs. So Mr. Cameron has been criticized for using his government connections on behalf of the Green Seal Capital, a company which had a commercial interest. So what is David Cameron said to have done? Well, David Cameron was the prime minister from 2010 to 2016. So during this time, he appointed Lex Greensill as an unpaid advisor and allowed him to develop a policy that would ensure small firms were paid more quickly. So this is just something that he adopted. And the other thing is that after leaving the office, Mr. Cameron was employed by Green Seal Capital and tried to unsuccessfully lobby. In other words, he tried to persuade the government to give the firm more access to government-backed loans. So what he's trying to do is say, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. It's a situation like that. It's something like that. So this is just one of the things, that David Cameron was doing. So Mr. Cameron contacted the government ministers on several occasions. And one time he texted Chancellor Rishi Sunak asking for the company to be included in a COVID-related government loan scheme. So yeah, he also contacted the Treasury Minister Jess Norman, and they were trying to talk about this, and John Glenn about the company. And what happened was he also met with Health Secretary Matt Hancock along with Lex Greensill for a private drink in 2019 to discuss a new payment scheme for NHS staff. So yeah, the Greensill company, the capital, has now gone bust though. It's gone completely bankrupt, throwing the futures of thousands of workers at Liberty Steel, a company backed by the finance firm, and it's into doubt. So right now the government, how they're reacting to this is that they announced a review into the decisions made in a government around Greensill's finance scheme and the role of Lex Greensill. So it will be headed up by a government lawyer, Nicholas Boardman, and will report back to Boris Johnson by the end of June. So Downing Street say that the review will look at how contracts were secured and how business representatives engaged with the government. So this is all what they're trying to do is they're trying to beat up all of this, because at the end of the day, politicians, what they're trying to do is get it all in their interest. What they're trying to fight for is their interest. What they do all these nasty work, and it's really, in the end of it, to boot, it's corruption. Because at the end of the day, you are using your connections for your own benefit, and you are actually a government servant. You shouldn't be even doing that. So that's just something that right now the government is looking into, and they're doing an investigation. So what has David Cameron said about all this? Well, Mr. Cameron said he will respond positively to any request to give evidence to the Treasury Select Committee. However, this does not mean he will necessarily appear in person to answer the MPs' question. So yeah, the former Prime Minister issued a statement at the weekend defending the involvement with the Greensill and the Greensill Capital. So yeah, he also admitted that he should have contacted the government through only the most formal of channels when lobbying for a financial firm, but he denied that he broke any codes of conduct or any government rules on the lobbying. So what are the lobbying rules say? So essentially the rules say is that the current rules say that on leaving office, ministers will be prohibited from lobbying government for 2 years. So Mr. Cameron stood down as prime minister in 2016 and joined Greensill in August 2018. So before accepting new jobs, former ministers are supposed to inform a body called the Advisory Committee of Business Appointments, or it's also known as the OCOBA, And the ACOBA advises civil servants and politicians on what they can and they can't do after leaving the public service. So, however, though, although former ministers are required to contact ACOBA, they are not obliged to act on its behalf. So that is just, that's just something that they are, talking about. And there's a lot of these unanswered questions. There's a lot of these investigations and claims in Whitehall that had serious reservations about Mr. Greenhill's original employment as a special advisor and about the value of his early payment scheme. That's one of the things, they are having questions about. And Mr. Cameron states that he does not specify how much he was paid when he went to work for Greensill Capital, but he had shares in the company, and he denies claims that he told friends he was set to earn as much as 60 million pounds from them, nor does Mr. Cameron declare whether he lobbied against any other ministers. So there's a lot of this going on right now, and there's a lot of these corruption happening right now in the UK. And when it comes to this, especially when it comes to lobbying, is just one of the issues, that the government right now is trying to tackle. And they're trying to cut down on what ministers and ex-ministers can do. And hey, make sure you guys tune in right here on Relax Radio as we talk about this and a lot more in depth. We're going to be talking about a lot more as we go along in the show. We'll be talking about, what jobs can these ex-ministers do and what do the rules entail. So make sure you guys tune in for more on that. And we're also going to be talking about the COVID-19 passport. Yeah, that's something interesting that's happening right now in the UK. But in that being said, though, we are going to be taking a real quick break. So taking a look at your time right now, it is 3 o'clock on the dot. Good afternoon.